Well, I would like to welcome you to the next lesson. And this lesson is called Feeling Safe, or How to Feel Safe. And this is an important state to be in, isn't it, if we wish to sit in contentment? Because if we do not feel safe, it is not wise to sit in contentment. It is wise to sit in protection, right? So we must learn to feel safe in reality. And how can we learn to do that when the last time we were safe in reality, life pushed us around, right? And we felt harm, we felt pain, and sometimes we even felt trauma from the things that we have seen, right? That is when we let ourselves loose in reality. Now we want safety. So for some who seek to sit in contentment in meditation, they feel unsafe because of past trauma or injury, right? And because sitting in contentment is essentially sitting in reality, this aversion that we are feeling means that we no longer wish to sit in reality without safeguards. Because of this, much of our energy will not want to sit in the present moment, right? At least not in its present state. And this is kind of hard to get our minds around, but, the Buddha often gave us warnings about the mind. And it wasn't really that the mind is a bad thing, but there are times that we will have certain events or ways of thinking that will lead to parts of our thinking working actively against us. Actively against us. We tend to think that because we are a single being that everything should just work for us, right? But this is an instance of our energy opposing one of our decisions actively, right? Not by mistake. It's not an accident. This part of ourselves is thinking and wishes to oppose us in the present. So it's just important to realize that that state can exist, right? But now we are sitting in reality, right? Again. And much of our energy does not wish to sit with us without safeguards. So now we sit contently in reality and watch our energies, right? That's the point of meditation. To watch our energies that will not sit with us unless these safeguards are met. But if we are sitting in reality watching our energies, the question kind of arises, where are our energies sitting, right? They must be sitting in illusion. In illusion that can only become a reality by controlling the reality. Forcing it to become or to bend to our needs, right? And here is when the controlling spirit arises, right? Fear creates the need to control. Trauma forces us to control our environment or to avoid it. And of course, avoidance often leads to things like drug abuse, right? Anything that dulls the experience of reality. Anything. So trauma forces us to control or avoid. And because our world is so difficult to control, we are often left along the sidelines, right? Fear can sideline us, and our energy will take a step back. But the question arises, where does this feeling of being unsafe come from? It comes from trauma, we say, right? It comes from the things that happen to us, right? It comes from painful and terrible things. The last time we stepped out in reality without thinking about it, we got stepped on and beat up. And now we're in pain. Now we have trauma, right? You would think it came from things like this. Things that happen to us. But it does not. And Do not feel strange if this surprises you. It surprised me. But this is what my teacher taught me one day. That trauma does not come from things that happen to us. And once I understood how trauma formed, it held no more power over me. No more fear. It all began with a strange question my teacher asked one morning. He said, "Do you eat chickens whole?" He did say it with a slight smile. So I stuttered, kind of surprised. I said, "I don't understand what you mean." I mean, do you eat your chickens whole in your country? The feet and the feathers and the guts and the innards and all that thing. Do you eat them that way? Of course not, I cried out. That would be disgusting. Of course I don't eat chickens that way, right? Oh, he said, looking back at his other brothers. We were just wondering because you swallow emotional events whole. He says, the unhealthy and the healthy. And we just thought maybe you learned to eat that way by eating chickens that way. I could tell a lesson was coming. And it was. There began a lesson on the lesson of emotional digestion. And my teacher began to speak about the solar plexus chakra, right? The yellow one. He began to explain that the yellow chakra was about digestion. And in an emotional sense, a powerful, healthy form of digestion can form in the Buddha mind. See how the world is constantly being consumed by things, he said. Things that were said to them. They cannot shake them. He says, by how they are treated, they cannot believe it. It's so sensitive. They cannot let things go. And soon their mind is full of worries and wonders and concerns. Fester and anger, right? And they are made sick from emotional contact. Walking through the world, getting sicker and sicker each day. How many of us have felt that way in the past, right? So sensitive, picking up the energies of others, and feeling sicker and sicker each day from it. And yet, the monk would say, all this can go in an instant. Simple, really. It is really the result of improper digestion. Consumption, the method of consumption, is a choice, in all things. And then he whispered, they are swallowing these events whole, the healthy and the unhealthy. And for that reason, pain almost all the time. Unhealthy approach. Perhaps they did not know they had a choice. And then he gave a thoughtful look. How we consume is always a choice. For example, how do we eat a chicken like a wise person? And he did not condone or deny eating meat, by the way. This was something that he just used as an example. And the discussion of eating meat, I'm sure we will talk about that in another lesson. For example, he would say, how do we eat chicken as a wise person, right? He said, I guess at first we would search for the healthy parts, right? The tastiest parts. And move the fatty bits and the bones and the gristle to the side, right? We would search for the healthiest and tastiest parts. In an emotional way, we could choose to do the same thing when we are in emotional events, right? It is a choice. We could examine the emotional exchange for the beauty and look for the best parts of it. How this being loved so greatly, he disregarded me completely. Right? That's how people treat each other, and we are offended by it. But look at the beauty of it. The beauty of how powerful this love is, right? And this way we can actually leave being encouraged by emotional events that others are discouraged by. Imagine that. Only looking for the healthy parts, and now walking through this environment, growing healthier and healthier each moment because of our approach of not eating the parts that bring us illness or sickness, right? So what do we do with these parts, right? Do we just ignore them? We cannot find real contentment by just ignoring things or pretending things. But these parts are simply the parts of the other person's journey, right? A journey of using love in a more and more effective way each time. And this time it was not that effective, right? He brought love to himself, but brought pain to you. Or the possibility of pain, depending upon how we handle it. If we just see the love, we will just find the upbuilding parts and let the other parts go as his journey. See how powerful this love is, right? And be amazed and upbuilt where others are being torn down. And next, try to form a valuable bond with this person because of such beauty. And that love, that powerful love, may one day be supporting you. That is a powerful thing, right? In this way, we allow others to move on their journeys at their speed, recognizing that their approach may not be all that healthy, but that is where they're at, right? In this way, we will always be encouraged and never weakened, and soon will step out of the shadows of fear and feeling unsafe. Our safety is now in our hands, in a sense. It is on how we interpret things. Our emotional health is now squarely where it should be, right? Why would we give it to somebody else? And once we have gotten good at using this in the present, it's not a bad idea to use it on the past events, right? The traumas that we do carry with us and the fears and the unsafe feelings we carry with us from the past when we were young and didn't have any tools to work with. This is a tool. Go back and look at those things, and maybe you can find health where now you find trauma, right? Always a good thing to try. But ultimately, this story shows us that the power is ours to be healthy and content. We should not give that power to others, right? It was never theirs in the first place. There was a second teaching that my teacher taught me that day too, that tried to impress on how we are changeable and that trauma is not permanent. And this was a powerful teaching of that began when he banged his foot on the ground. Just bang, 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 right? And he said, "What am I feeling?" And I looked at him and I thought, that's probably not a trick question, right? I said, "The ground," I answered, right? He says, No. He says, "It's impossible to feel the ground. We can only feel our foot." And I said, "What does that mean?" He leaned forward and said with a smile, "It means that you cannot feel the outside world. You can only feel your body's reaction to it." We have never felt the outside world. We have only felt our body's reaction to it. All our feelings are our body's interpretation of the outer world. He said, "Do you know what this means?" And I said, "Sure," and nodded, but didn't know at all. He says that means at times of great emotional pain and trauma, our bodies present to us the interpretation of pain and trauma. Present to us as a case. This is what's happening here. And we accept that notion, and pain and trauma begins, right? It began when we accepted that notion. And if we revisit these events and accept a new interpretation, accept a new notion of what happened, a healthier notion that is healthier for us in the present, not a fake one, but a better examination with more tools to examine. We begin to realize that this event, if interpreted in a different way, might not be interpreted as trauma any longer. It could become interpreted as something else, right? It is under our control what it will become interpreted as, right? So long as it is a wise interpretation, right? Sometimes trauma events become accepted as healthy learning experiences. A long road, but this can happen. Or at other times, they are understood in ways that simply allow us to heal better in the present. A new way of thinking that releases this energy from being in pain and brings more understanding of the world to the present, right? Often, trauma occurs when we are young and without tools like these stories have given us, right? Just too young to know what to do with what happened to us. But now, first, we can employ emotional digestion and only absorb what was healthy in that event. And let the rest go as part of the other person's unhealthy journey. Or early health, let's call it. The second is to see that trauma is only one way of looking at the event. And it would be wise to view all events in the healthiest way possible for us, right? It is unfortunate that some events occur, but if we can control our interpretation so that we maintain the healthiest interpretation possible, that would be wise for us, right? It would lead to better health. So sitting in contentment and meditation gives us the perfect place and time to unravel our thoughts and past events. Like a knot, we cannot untie a knot when we're under pressure, right? When both sides of the string are being pulled on, the knot is very tight. And even though that knot is simply a configuration of a single being, it will work against itself, right? Meditation solves one problem. The problem of being tense, right? Sit in calmness and sit in contentment and relax and look at the knot, right? Because meditation gives us time to unravel this knot by looking at it and relaxing with it. And perhaps by revisiting past traumas, we will find new and healthier ways to see our history, right? To change our outlook, our perspective, which changes everything. By doing so, our energies caught up in protecting us from reality can take a break, and we can find ourselves resting comfortably in reality itself. And there it is, right? For someone who can sit in reality itself is sitting in a world without illusions and has a powerful state of mind. And this is a place we can live from. So that is the lesson on feeling safe, and I look forward to the next lesson coming up. Thanks again, Bye.